And we're
how is this
inserting
even
that.
okay? I know.
Yeah.
But how is it even okay that companies can create something for women and AFAB people that can cause endometriosis and cancer? It's just ridiculous.
This is episode 157. Hello and welcome to my podcast show, Your Coach, Helen Uskovic. This is the Smart Chat series. This is an episode where I chat to an expert or a thought leader from around the world on a certain topic. Hello and welcome to part 2 of this 2-part series. If you haven't heard last week's episode, I highly recommend that you go on over and listen to that first before you jump into today's episode so that you can get an understanding of the foundational things that you need to know first when it comes to women's health. And get ready for today's episode. It's such a goodie. I hope you love it just as much as I do. Here we go. And now there's all of this research and information to say the chemicals that are in these products and that there are some healthier alternatives to tampons. I would love to ask you why we should be cautious of tampons.
Such a good question. And this is something that I really learned about whilst researching for this book. And so, the information in the book blew me away. I mean, you kind of have a sense of some of it, but the actual numbers are quite surprising. So I guess first of all, probably most of us know that there are alternatives now. We've got menstrual cups, we've got reusable pads, we've got menstrual discs. I personally really love period undies. I just think it's the best thing that's ever been created, genius. And I also want to acknowledge that, tampons and disposable pads are still an important thing that we do need because financially that's what works for some people still. But also if you're someone who doesn't have easy access to running water, then you really need to be able to have access to disposable products. So, I really just want to make sure that that's clear that, we can't all have these alternatives and that's okay. But I guess it's about we're looking for a majority here because they can just be so detrimental to our body and to the planet. So I've actually got the stats written out here because, I just wanted to get it right. But there are 20 billion disposable pads and tampons that end up in landfill every year, which is actually pretty wild when you think about the fact that we really only use them for a few hours, and that's happening every year. And okay, so for organic tampons, they take about 6 months to 5 years to biodegrade, but for non-organic tampons, they take 500 to 1,000 years to break down.
Ew.
And we've got 20 billion of them going into landfill every single year. So this also means that every single tampon that's, apart from the organic ones, but every single non-organic tampon that's ever been made still exists on the planet. It's a pretty wild thing to think about. Disposable pads take 500 to 800 years to biodegrade as well. So a big problem there, but yeah,
do you know, I just wish that third world countries had access to things like period undies because I haven't spent money on pads and tampons for years. And I feel like I've saved money as a result of that.
Yes. So it's that initial output that is off-putting or is actually a struggle for some people. But there's fantastic organizations that you donate to as well. I don't know any off the top of my head, but that you can donate to that actually donate period undies and things like that to.
So amazing.
Yeah,
and
to communities that really need them.
For your friends.
Yes, such a good gift. Yes.
The best gift, because sometimes people don't want to spend that $20 on the period undie or the $25 on the period undie, but you'd buy it as a gift.
Yeah, 100%. Such a good point. But tampons, they also affect us. So, the way that tampons work is by absorption. And so they can actually really dry out and change the microbiome of the vagina. There's a whole microbiome of good bacteria in our vagina. And when we use tampons, it can mess with that, which increases our chances of infection. So yes, if you're someone using tampons and you're getting lots of infections, then that's definitely a consideration. They can also cause cramping. I don't know if you've ever experienced this in your life. I never used to know this. This was actually the beginning of me starting to learn about this, about period products, was, I was never someone who had debilitating pain, or it sort of did get a little bit that way. Day one of my period would be I'd really feel it. And then I just made a friend who just didn't like tampons. She used reusable pads, and she was like, it helped with me with my period pain. And so then I tried it out. I didn't buy reusable pads. You bought disposable pads at the time, and I had zero period pain. I'm talking zero period pain. Like they really, and that was me being like, okay, I don't want to go back to this. And that's where I stopped using tampons, and I actually just began using pads, disposable pads. This was years ago. And I've never really used tampons since. Just made such a difference for me. But yeah, they also contain bleach, and a byproduct of bleach is dioxins, which are a carcinogen, and they've been shown that they can cause cancer and endometriosis.
Yeah.
So,
and we're
how is this
inserting
even
that.
okay? I know.
Yeah.
But how is it even okay that companies can create something for women and AFAB people that can cause endometriosis and cancer? Like, it's just ridiculous. But yeah, in terms of the earth, I mean, we've talked about how long they take to biodegrade, but also when they're disposed of, the chemicals in the tampons soak into the earth, and they actually pollute our groundwater and our air. So it's a real problem. Plus, they're made from cotton, and growing cotton requires so much more water in comparison to other crops. So
wow,
there's a lot of reasons why
so
it
crazy
can be good to transfer over. Yeah.
And then there's toxic shock syndrome, and then there's all sorts of things.
Course.
And it's like, wow. Yeah. Once I learned that, I was like, look at what I'm inserting. Wow. Let's stop doing that and let's try different things. I tried the menstrual cup, failed epically. And then I got, the pads that you could just wash yourself afterwards. They were great. And then period undies came out, and I was like,
yes.
Hallelujah. This is so easy. I wish I had these when I was at school.
Yep.
Oh, Melissa, it's time for your second curveball. Are you ready to play?
Oh, my God. Yes.
She's taking a sip of tea. All right. Your second curveball is, what is something interesting that most people don't know about you?
Oh, that's a hard one. That's one of those ones where you're like, my mind is blanking. I'm a singer. Maybe that one. And a voiceover artist.
No way. What sort of
maybe
styles?
That's a bit boring.
No.
I'm one of those singers who I just love singing. So I'll sing a lot of different stuff, but I really love jazz. I love to write music. So I like to just sing whatever comes out of me. But, I'll also love to do some musical theatre. I've also been I stopped about 2 years ago, but I've been a singing teacher for a long time as well. And, I get into all that musical theatre stuff as well.
That's so cool. What's your favorite song to sing? What's your go-to song?
Oh, God, that's really hard to. Okay,
so hard.
There's, I guess, a couple. There's one, I feel like this one misrepresents me a little bit, but it's this old jazz standard called God Bless the Child. I'm not a religious person at all, but it's just an incredible, beautiful, beautiful song, and I just love to sing it over and over and over.
So God Bless the Child.
God Bless the Child, Billie Holiday. It's really, really special song.
You should totally sing us a line.
I'm not going to. I will never. On my own podcast, Bridget has said that to me multiple times, my co-host, and I'm like, no. She's like, you should sing our introduction song or something. I'm like, I'm never going to. It's not happening.
That's so funny. I've got to find the song and I'll insert it right here, guys.
I pretend it's me. That's funny. Yeah.
That's so
and I'm a voiceover artist, so I sometimes you might hear me on an ad or something.
I love that. See, this is so interesting. That's why I love asking this question. Let's talk about endometriosis.
Okay.
How is it caused? Is it something that us girls are just born with? And if we do have it, we'll get it. How do we treat it?
This is a huge question. You could have 10 episodes on it. It's such a complex chronic condition. Okay, so what is it? Endometriosis, it's the growth of lesions that are made of a tissue that's similar to the lining of our uterus, but not the same. but it grows outside of the uterus. So it can grow on organs like our ovaries, on our fallopian tubes, our intestines, our bowel, the bladder. And basically our immune system responds to these lesions, unfortunately, with inflammation and by promoting, which promotes their growth. And so it's not a hormonal condition. That's a bit of a misconception. It's not like you can balance your hormones and heal your endometriosis, but endometriosis is affected by hormones, so the hormones of our menstrual cycle. And so when you get your period, that hormonal interplay can actually cause the lesions to bleed as well, which is why it can be so debilitatingly painful. Yeah, it affects about 10% of women and people who are AFAB. So it's pretty prolific. And as I said before, it takes a really, really long time to get a diagnosis sometimes. And a big part of that is medical gaslighting. It's people showing up to the doctor saying, I am in, debilitating pain when I get my period, and the doctor being like, well, that's being a woman. Like, that's just what it is, when that's just not the case. If you're having anything more than mild period pain, it's something to talk to your doctor about. Doesn't mean necessarily endometriosis, but it can mean a hormonal imbalance or adenomyosis. There's a lot of different things that it could be. In terms of what causes it, this is one of those conditions where everyone's still learning. Everyone's still learning about it, and research is still building, and that understanding is still building. But what they know is that it can be a combination of a few different things. So it can be genetics. If it's in your family, I think the stat, maybe don't quote me on this, but it's about 7 to 10 times or 7 to 8 more times more likely to have it if it's in your immediate family.
Okay.
Toxins can be a contributor here. So toxins found in plastics, in rubbers, and also in non-organic food, which just sucks because it's really hard to avoid non-organic food. Leaky gut can be a contributor. So that's where in our gut, the actual lining of our gut begins to kind of get little gaps in it. I mean, it's a bit more complicated than that, but get little gaps in it, and actual like little molecules can leak out of our gut and into our immune system, actually, where our immune system is born. And so that can be a contributing factor. If you have an allergy to nickel, that could be a contributing factor. So if you've ever tried like cheap jewelry, if cheap jewelry makes your ears sore or itchy and like uncomfortable, it can be me too. Mm-hmm. It can be an indicator of a nickel allergy, and that can contribute to endometriosis.
No way.
Yeah. There can be some dysfunction in our immune cells that can lead to it, and also bacterial toxin overgrowth in the pelvis. There's a specific bacteria there that, if it overgrows, it can contribute to endometriosis. So that's very complicated, right? Like that's every single one of those points. Like you could just learn a lot about, and I mean, endometriosis is certainly not my expertise. That's not something that I know thoroughly. I don't have it myself, and I haven't written whole books on it or anything. So I mean, I'm still learning so much obviously about it as well. But
I find that I used to get confused with endometriosis and PCOS. So what about polycystic ovarian syndrome? What's the difference? How does one get polycystic ovarian syndrome, and can it be treated?
Yeah, they're actually really different conditions. However, there's a lot of people who have a crossover of having both.
Oh, wow.
I will just say with endometriosis, just really quickly, just on the treatment front, is that, the top line of defense there is excision surgery. So it's to actually have surgery to remove the lesions. And whether you take a Western medicine approach to health or a natural approach, everyone's in agreement there that excision surgery is the best approach. However, in about 50% of cases, the lesions grow back within 5 years. So it's about how you manage your endometriosis after you've had that surgery. And the conventional method is hormonal birth control. However, hormonal birth control has its own side effects, and it's not an option if you're trying to conceive. So then, there is a natural approach, absolutely. And it's about supporting your gut health, your immune health, and reducing inflammation. And also specifically, if you have that nickel jewelry issue there, like that nickel allergy, reducing foods that have nickel in them as well. And so, yeah, healing the gut, removing any foods that you have a sensitivity to. And then there's some fantastic supplements like zinc, selenium, N-acetylcysteine, turmeric, curcumin, berberine. There's some really fantastic things there. If you have endometriosis and you're not getting support and you're listening to this, I highly encourage you to consider talking to a natural health practitioner, because there really are so many options for helping to manage it. But in terms of PCOS, so PCOS affects about 10 to 20% of women and people who are AFAB. And what causes it? There's a range. Again, it can be genetics. It can also be developmental. So if when you were in the womb, if your mum was exposed to a lot of toxins, or if she herself had a lot of androgens, which is the typical male hormones, then developmentally in the womb is when that can you can have that predisposition to it. But then there are contributing factors that really drive it. So there's insulin resistance, which again, we could talk about a lot. There's inflammation, stress really drives it. That's a big one for me personally.
Wow.
Gut issues. So leaky gut again. I mean, honestly, if you talk to an Ayurvedic practitioner like you have, and a lot of practitioners, honestly, a lot of people really believe that most chronic illness, most issues really begin in the gut. That's really where our health is. Like, it's the basis of our health. And that makes sense, because that's where we consume everything that builds our body. The other thing that can contribute to PCOS is thyroid issues as well. And then in terms of treatment, I mean, there's so many different approaches. I'm a big believer in sharing that, like, we are all different. You know, one thing isn't going to affect all of us the same. You know, there's not some magic pill that'll affect us all the same. But there's also so many options for PCOS, and so many people don't understand that. They haven't been told that yet. You know, there is Western medicine. However, Western medicine, honestly, it's quite limited when it comes to PCOS, and none of its medicines actually address the root to try to heal you from the ground up. It's more of a Band-Aid. But in terms of natural medicine, you can turn to Ayurveda, Chinese medicine, a naturopath, a functional medicine practitioner, and they've got so many herbs and supplements for us. But it really is about addressing what your driver is, finding what your driver is, and then addressing it. And also my approach is to simultaneously address your hormonal imbalances. And so with PCOS, if you are listening and you have PCOS, the very first step that I always say is to get very thorough testing done. And you can get it from your GP. You might hit a wall with them. They might say no. They might not be interested in talking to you at all. It happens so much in our community, unfortunately. But they're out there. There are good ones out there, and you really want to try and get as many hormones tested as you can. I have actually a free guide on my website. It's like a PCOS supplements guide. And in that guide, on page 3 of that guide, there's a list of all the different hormones and blood tests that we want to get tested. And if you can get as many of those as you can, what you'll get is a really clear picture of, 1, what hormones are out of balance, and 2, what is actually driving your PCOS. And then you treat from there.
That's so cool. I would love to put a link to that in the show notes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'll provide it for you. I'll give it to you.
Yeah, so everybody can grab a copy. And I think that after reading your book, like, your wellness journal is a great place to start as well, just because, like, I'm excited to start. You get to get more in touch with your body, with your flow, and you start to understand, oh, okay, on this day this happened, or on this day that happened. And I think it's going to be such a great experiment and a great tool to use, especially on, the journey that I'm on at the moment.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Melissa, it's time for your third curveball. Are you ready to play?
Yes.
And your final curveball is, I'm a mindset coach, and I love hearing about how people navigate different mindsets. So my question to you is, how do you navigate from a negative mindset to a positive mindset? What do you do?
Okay, there's a few different things that are coming to mind for me. One is I have a mantra, so I think sometimes that's what works for me. It depends what, negative mindset could be a few different things for me. But I think the thing that I could probably speak more to is that negative mindset that is like anxiety. So sometimes, like, the way I describe my anxiety when I have it is it's like a spiral. It's racing thoughts that I'm just like getting down in the trenches in this spiral of just catastrophe. And I had it was really bad when I was pregnant with my second baby. Actually, I had really bad pregnancy anxiety because there was a couple of issues in that pregnancy, and I just really didn't know if I would get to see her at the end of it.
Right.
And so I was freaking out. and then I was freaking out about freaking out because I was pregnant, and you don't want to be freaking out when you're pregnant. And I realized there was just this one word, and it's a little bit like, I don't know, maybe people think it'll sound a bit lame or something, but it just helped me so much. And the word was gentle. And what it would do, I'd just honestly just say that word to myself. And it was like this button, and it would, because it had so many meanings for me, it was like, okay, think the thoughts, think have these worries. They're not going away. Like, it's realistic. She actually might be stillborn. You might have a late term miscarriage. Like, these are actually risk factors for you. So that those fears aren't going away, but just think them more gently. And so what it would do, it would make me slow down the way I would say these thoughts. And it would also change the tone of voice in my head of how I was talking to myself, because when I'm catastrophizing, I'm really intense. Like, it's such an intense feeling when you've got that kind of anxiety. And gentle felt like the opposite of intense. So I would slow down my words, the tone of voice in my head would relax, and I would be more gentle to myself too. So I was more kinder to myself. So it was this kind of layered meaning to this one word, and it was like a key for me. It would just unlock it, and it would chill me out a lot. And I use it to this day. Yeah, that's
amazing. That's a great key for me. I coach, lots of clients with anxiety, and that word gentle, it can just do so much to your mindset, that language. Amazing.
Yeah, and it doesn't take away, like, it doesn't try to force you to stop thinking those thoughts, because that can make things worse for me. Like, it's like, no, have the fears, just be more chill about it. And exactly. I have shared that before, because I'm a coach too, but a PCOS fertility coach. And I've shared that with some of my clients, and it seems to always hit and land for them. So yeah, it's a good one, I think.
It's amazing. I would love to just pick your brain a little bit. Maybe I'll bring her back on the show, guys. There's so much I want to ask you.
So much that I could say.
Yes.
I don't shut
up. Perfect. I want to pick your brain about the 3 pillars of fertility.
Yeah.
Yeah. Could you run
through
this?
About that. Yeah.
I love it too. Guys, everything is in her book. I'll put her links in the show notes. You've got to get it. It's so insightful, and you just drop in so much amazing information in an easy way to understand and read. So,
thank you.
Power to you.
Thanks, man. Like, that's honestly my goal with it, is to make it really easy to read and digest and understand. So thanks. That means a lot. And yeah, I do. I go into these 3 pillars of fertility, and this is my jam because, I'm a PCOS fertility coach. So fertility is the thing I talk about every day. Yeah. So, I've been on my own fertility journey, and obviously, with my own podcast and the books, I've read a lot about fertility. I've spoken to a lot of experts, and what I really discovered from it all is that this idea that there's these 3 pillars of fertility, and one of them I think is really overlooked. The first one is ovulation. We have to be ovulating. If we're not ovulating, we can't conceive. So if you are having a long cycle, or if you're having a very short cycle, then I would be investigating ovulation and confirming if it's happening. So this, again, is hormone testing is a big part of it. Okay. But one of the big things we can do is when you think you've ovulated, so you think, okay, I think this is ovulation, then 7 days after that, you want to get a blood test of progesterone. because progesterone rises after ovulation and it peaks around 7 days later. So you want to get your progesterone tested then. And if it's nice and high, it's a really nice confirmation that you did ovulate. And if it's not, then it's a real indication that you haven't ovulated and that we need to investigate further. And another thing that we can do is take our basal body temperature. So after we ovulate, we begin producing progesterone, as I just mentioned. And that progesterone actually, it warms our body a very small amount. And you can buy a basal body thermometer, which is just a normal thermometer, except that it goes to 2 decimal places. So instead of saying that your temperature is 36.7, it'll say 36.78. And because this is how minuscule the rise of temperature is, we need those 2 numbers. And so, after you ovulate, you're going to, within 3 days after ovulation, you're going to see your temperature rise, and then you're going to see it, it'll differ a little bit each day, but it's going to stay higher than it was before ovulation all the way through until a day or 2 before you get your period. Or if you're pregnant, it will continue to stay high. So that's another sort of home DIY way to look at your fertility and look to see if you're ovulating. And if you're trying to conceive, I do encourage you to consider doing it even just for a cycle or 2, just to see what your norm is. It can be really good data for you, but also for your doctors if you end up needing to see a doctor about it. So ovulation is really, really key. You need to be ovulating. And if you're not, that absolutely has to be the biggest focus for you. You've got to be really making sure that you're ovulating. And I could literally talk about ovulation for hours. There's so much more to it. The second,
I just want to butt in. If you are listening and you aren't ovulating, don't lose hope, because I have had many friends that have been on this journey where they've had no hope, but then they've turned to different sorts of therapies and alternative methods, and everyone has babies now.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. There's so much you can do for ovulation. Absolutely. If you're not ovulating, it's a hormonal imbalance. We just need to find out what your hormones are doing. We need to find out what's driving them out of balance. And then there are very clear protocols and specific medicines that can address each of those things very specifically. And it's effective. It's really, really effective. And I've done it myself as well. I've got PCOS. So, my body struggles. Proof. I am living proof. And I'm not the only one. There's, we can absolutely work on this. And as you say, there are so many fantastic therapies that can help us with this.
Thank you.
The second pillar of fertility is egg health. So we really want to be making sure that the actual quality of our eggs is really strong. There's definitely things that we can't affect about our egg health. We cannot change the chromosomes of our eggs. And, it's very normal that everybody sometimes has eggs that have got some chromosomal issues, and you just cannot get pregnant with that egg. It's just not possible. However, we can affect the quality of the egg. And so when we ovulate an egg, it's actually been on this we're actually born with all the eggs that we're going to have throughout our life, but they've actually begun this sort of maturation process leading to ovulation about 90 days before ovulation. And it's in those 90 days that we can have an impact on the quality of those eggs. So there are certainly things that can be damaging to eggs. And this is kind of my least favorite part of talking about health, because I really don't like telling people what they, shouldn't eat or, any of that. Yeah. I'm very much a person about adding in what's good rather than worrying about removing too much. Yeah. But, there's some obvious things there, like smoking and drinking lots of alcohol that can be damaging to eggs, and lots of stress can be damaging. And
stress is that thing, isn't it?
It is. But also lots of packaged foods, really if we're drinking heaps of soft drink or soda, that can have an impact as well. And none of this with health, honestly, it's never about perfection, is it? It's absolutely about just taking steps, realistic steps that are sustainable, and, doing the best that you can. But there are things that we can add in to really help our egg health as well. So healthy fats are fantastic. Really antioxidant rich foods are really good. There's also incredible supplements that can help us. So coenzyme Q10 or CoQ10 is a really good one. It really helps the mitochondria of the egg, which is what gives the egg energy, gives it the energy to exist and to grow and develop. So it's really important.
Wow.
And CoQ10 is probably the most popular kind of supplement for helping with that. Zinc is really fantastic. It's fantastic because if we have a zinc deficiency, this can be very detrimental to the ability for the egg to actually develop. So you want to make sure that you've got enough zinc in your body so that the egg can actually mature and divide and grow into an embryo. Zinc's also really helpful for the embryo to be able to grow. And then selenium is another really good supplement as well, because it actually, the eggs actually exist within something called a follicle, and between the egg and the walls of the follicle is this follicular fluid, and selenium helps that follicular fluid be really healthy and abundant. There's also other supplements, absolutely, but those are three real standout ones. And so, just knowing that if you're planning to conceive in the future, I mean, the sooner you can kind of start on this stuff, the better, especially ovulation. If you'll even want to conceive in a couple of years and you know that you've got a long cycle, you can start now. You can start working on that stuff now so that by the time you get there, things are really in a good place. And it's true for egg health as well. But certainly, that 90 days or that 3 months prior to trying to conceive, you want to at least be sort of thinking about your egg health then, and just trying to, just make those eggs as healthy as can be. Because also the other thing is if you don't have healthy eggs, that can have this flow-on effect to our progesterone levels. It can cause low progesterone, and then low progesterone can have this flow-on effect to all our other hormones. So prioritizing egg health is a good one for ovulation actually as well. And then the third pillar of fertility is the actual reproductive environment. So it's the actual quality of our reproductive organs. So our uterus, our fallopian tubes, our ovaries. And this is, I think, overlooked a lot. It's not talked about enough. I mean, if you turn to Ayurveda and Chinese medicine, it's talked about plenty. But I just don't think it's addressed everywhere else enough. And it's so important because this is what leads back to our earlier conversation about stagnation. If we have stagnation down there, it can just be harder for the egg to actually implant. We really want to have these organs being as healthy as possible. We want them to be fresh and clean. And when you have your period, you want that to be a real cleansing. You want everything to be coming out really healthily because we want that uterine lining to be really nice and healthy for an egg to implant. If it's really stagnant and it's full of fibroids and polyps, this is going to be harder for the egg to implant. And the other thing is that eggs also really like oxygen, and that's where they're housed. So we want to send as much blood flow to the area and get as much oxygen to those organs and those eggs as we can. And that's where we're talking earlier about heat packs. Self-fertility massage is great, or you can go and get an actual fertility massage from a fertility massage therapist. And it's really cool because they'll often also give you some home little tips as well that you can do on yourself. Yeah, fertility massage is incredible. It can really help with so many things.
Do you do fertility massage on yourself?
I did when I was in my fertility journeys. I have only just started very, very recently, I'm talking 2 weeks ago, beginning again. And I don't want to have any more children. That part is gone, but it's also just a really nice way to connect with your body. It's just like a massage of your lower abdomen. You can use specific techniques. You can look on YouTube. There are also some videos you can purchase to teach you about it.
Perfect.
I mean, the best thing you could do is go to a fertility massage therapist and get them to give you some pointers. But even for me, it's more just a pretty general lower abdomen belly rub. What you're trying to do is massage attracts blood. That's what it does. If you we can't do it because we've got our headphones on, but if you massage your ear for even 10 or 20 seconds, then about 10 or 20 seconds after you've done it, your ear will suddenly get really warm and sort of tingly.
Yes.
It's a really nice sensation. It's actually blood flowing into your ear. And I think that's just a really nice, quick, easy example of like how effective massage is in drawing blood. And so if you massage your lower abdomen, you're doing the same thing. Blood is going to flow there, and that's going to be so, so good for those organs.
Awesome.
And it feels nice. You could just be a few minutes. So when I was on my own fertility journey for both of my children, I did this religiously. I did it almost every night. 5 minutes, just a little 5-minute self-care moment where I would do a little massage, and it just connected me with my body, slowed me down, and felt like I was really having a part to play in my fertility too. And another really good one for this is legs up the wall pose. It's a yoga pose. Yes, where you lay on the ground and then you put your legs up. You don't have to be against the wall, but if you are against the wall, it's just very easy pose. And what's happening there is like the blood is just what's the word? It's flowing out of your legs, really, and it's just sort of pooling in your lower abdomen. And then you stand up, and it's like this real flushing of the area. Yeah, and then there's raspberry leaf tea that can be helpful as well.
Raspberry leaf tea, awesome.
Yeah.
I'll try to find a link to a fertility massage for the show notes, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll try and help you out with that as well.
Thank you. I do a lot of self massage.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
But yeah, fertility self-massage sounds amazing too.
Yes. Well, if you've already got that habit of self-massage, then you can just quite easily incorporate that then.
Yeah, I want to just see if I'm missing something. Thank you so much for all of this information today, Mel.
You're so welcome.
Amazing. But before we go, I'd love to ask you if there is anything at all that you would love to share.
Absolutely, yes. So, of course, I'm going to self-promote. My book goes into all of this stuff, and plus so much more, as you would have seen. It covers self-care, fertility, hormones, the thyroid, gut health, mental health. It's a very all-encompassing book, but very easy to use, and it's a journal. So it's about learning about yourself as well. And you can get it in terms of in bookstores, you can get it across Australia, the US, the UK, Canada, and New Zealand. But you can also get it online from Booktopia, Amazon, and there's a bunch of retailers online selling it worldwide. But yeah, as I mentioned before too, I'm a PCOS fertility coach. So that's sort of the main thing that I do. If you're listening to this and you're on a journey with regulating your cycles to conceive, or you're trying to conceive already, and you want some help and some, just someone in your corner, that's what it is. It's really about having someone in your corner. Then I would absolutely love to work with you. I've got a couple of different ways that I work. I've got a group coaching circle that I run, and that's kind of like a cancel anytime subscription. And I've created a discount code for you guys. So if you use the discount code Whole Health Love, so HOL Health Love, you'll get the first 3 weeks free. We meet every week, every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. And I do one-to-one coaching as well. So, and one of those that I offer is a 2.5 hour PCOS fertility roadmap session where we really if there's anything about me, it's that I'm very thorough. So, I really look at absolutely every element of your fertility, and we really try to make a plan and make sure that everything is being addressed, and we really create a clear path to getting pregnant and getting you in the best position possible to be pregnant. So if that appeals to you, I've also made a discount code for that, and that's Whole Health 30, and that'll give you 30% off.
That's
so
amazing.
HOLHEALTH 30.
Thank you so much. I can't wait. And I'm sure that you're serving so many people at the moment. I'm sure that you're helping so many women, helping to debunk myths, helping women have faith and hope when it comes to their cycles and fertility, obviously, or if they have any hormonal issues like PCOS or endometriosis. So on behalf of the world, thank you. And thank you for your time today.
Oh, thank you so much, Helen. Thank you for having me on this awesome podcast. And you asked such great questions. I love the whole conversation that we had. I'm clearly very passionate about all of this. So it's really nice to be able to have somewhere to talk about it. So thank you.
Thank you. I can't wait to start journaling inside your book. So I'll be in touch. And I might have to reach out to you on my journey too.
Oh my gosh, I would love that. I think we're actually going to get off this call and we're probably going to keep talking about that because I'm really interested to know where you're at.
So funny. All right, Mel, thanks again, and hopefully we'll get you back on the show sometime soon.
Thanks, Helen.
Wow, what an amazing woman. What an amazing episode. What amazing gold nuggets I got from this last 2-part series. Melissa has an easy way of shining light to an area of taboo, really, something that we don't really talk openly about. And that's why I really wanted to bring her on the show, so that way we start to have more conversations around this and a lot less shame around this sort of stuff, because as women, sometimes we can feel alone on our journey and alone with our bloody hormones. So if you're a woman that this show has resonated with, or if you have a friend that might resonate with these last 2 podcasts, please send it to them so that they can have a listen, so that they don't ever feel alone. And if you ever need anything, please feel free to reach out. Share your thoughts with me on my Instagram. I'd love to see you there at Helen_Uskovic. And until next week, stay beautiful, do something for yourself today, and make sure that you're smiling and thriving and happy and healthy and moving towards goodness every single day. See you next week.